Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Foods in the Hanbali School. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala Rasul al-Kareem. اللهم آتنا نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها اللهم اشكرنا أما بعد. All the praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the peace and blessings, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon his final prophet and messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We'll continue on with we started a new chapter after finishing the section of the marriage, the fiqh of the marriage, and the chapter on the foods at'imah. And this is in the Hanbali School, the school of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, as explained by the Sheikh Ibn Qudama, one of the main students in the Hanbali School. And this is at'imah, the foods. And in Arabic, when they say at'imah, it means everything that a person they consume, all the things that they eat and all the things they drink also. So it also refers to the things that they drink. The at'imah is ta'am, food, that's what that's referred to. And this is the introductory, the first section, introduction to the foods. Okay, would you like to read the first point, Sheikh Lisan Bhai? Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Kitab al-At'imati. Mudkhal, introduction of the foods.
Yes.
وهي نوعان حيوان وغيره.
Yes, okay.
So it has two categories, animals and besides.
Yes. Okay, so in the foods, what happens is there's rulings for animals, hayawan they have, and the rulings of things that are not animals, that people they consume. So they have two different rulings based on them, because the things for animals, there's specific things about them, and the things that are not animals, then it's pretty much, it's a little bit different than with animals. So it's basically into two main sections, when it comes to the foods. The ones that are with animals and the ones that are without animals.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first one. Yes. So the things that are not animals, then by default everything is allowed, except for some things that are mentioned there, because they have less of a restriction on things that are not animals on eating them. So that's what this section is about, the things that are not animals.
So non-animal foods, they're all allowed except for the following.
Yes, and then list out the things that are forbidden. Yes.
Except what is impure.
Yes. So something that is najis in the Hanbali school, then it's also forbidden to eat. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَحُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْخَبَائِث, that He forbade for you the things that are impure. So that's the same thing that they'll say in the Hanbali school, is something that is impure, and obviously then it wouldn't be allowed to eat it in that case if it's impure. Okay, najis, that's the first one. And these are things that are not from animals, things that are not from animals. If something is impure, then you won't eat it.
So what are the impure things that are not animals?
Like blood, for example, and urine and things like that. So.
Both of those are for animals.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're from animals, but they're not the meat of animals. So
okay.
They're not animals itself. I guess you could say. Yeah, that's true. I guess you could say it's from animals. Let's see, what else would be considered izad or najasa? Yeah, they're come to think of it. Most of the things are from animals, that are najasa.
Yeah.
Just the dead meat is considered to be najasa also, but that's also part of animals. The dead meat. Yeah, maybe nowadays you might have some substances that are considered to be impure. Yeah. Okay, I think that would require more look into it. I got to think about something that is impure.
Okay.
Inshallah.
أو مضرا أو مضرا.
Yes.
كالسموم.
Yes.
Okay, or harmful like poison.
Yes. So that also wouldn't be allowed the non-animal foods. Poison, person they can't kill themselves, the person they can't harm themselves. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions that in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, so don't kill yourself. So that would be haram to do that, consume things that are poisonous, toxic, one there. Okay, the next one, number 5.
وَالْأَشْرَبَةُ كُلُّهَا مُبَاحَةٌ إِلَّا, and the drinks are all allowed except.
Yes. So when they talk about the at'imah, they refer to the drinks, also the things that people they drink. and there's a variety of things that people they can drink, and that's what it says for the drinks. The default ruling is that it's allowed, and that's the thing to keep in mind in the ruling when it comes to foods. At first, the default is allowed. Then you have to see if there's any proof to show that it's forbidden. And that's normally speaking for the things that are not acts of worship per se. Things that are not acts of worship, mu'amalat, by default it's allowed, and then afterwards you have to see if there's some text or some evidence to show that it would be forbidden. So that's what it goes for the foods, and the drinks also. By default it's allowed. And then there goes an exception on the drinks, which is not allowed. One. Yes.
Intoxicates.
Yes. Yes, like wine and beer and other things. And in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they also made other things in jugs and things like that were made from other things besides barley and besides wheat and things like that. They used to, and even nowadays you have from apple juice, you can make it into cider, and you can make it into something that's intoxicating after you ferment it long enough. So those things are haram, with the drink. If a person, it makes them drunk. That's what's haram.
فإنه يحرم قليله وكثيره من أي شيء كان.
Yes.
And a lot of it and a little bit of it is both haram.
Yes.
Wherever it comes.
Yes. So if you have something that's forbidden, like the wine or the alcohol, so a small amount of it will be forbidden, and a large amount of it will be forbidden. That's what it's saying. Yes. And so he goes by. Yes. So the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, everything that intoxicates, maskara, sukara, that makes a person befogged in the mind. That's what khamr means. It's haram, not just the one from wine, from the grapes, but from anything else that does that. And today's day and age, people that have other things that people they do, whether it's drinking it, or putting it in their nose, or injecting it, all those things are haram, or smoking it.
Yeah,
so all those things are haram.
Keep it PG, but you got all kinds of drugs, right?
Right. Yes. They call them the drugs. All those things that makes a person intoxicated. That's haram. And the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people they ask him about using these things that makes the people befogged, if they can use that to cure themselves. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says it's not a cure; it's just a disease. So people, they might think that by taking alcohol and the other things, it's making them better. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says it doesn't make the person better; it just makes them worse. That's the case. These are things that befog the mind, where a person they can't think properly. That's what that refers to. And that's really problematic, because you have these things that people they prescribe, like morphine, and morphine is a opium, is opioid, and in Islam those would not be allowed because it befogs the mind. That's what they say. But if you look at the advanced ruling, some of the ulama they say that out of extreme circumstances, not because it makes a person not able to think properly, because it relieves the feelings of people, then they give the leeway for it. In extreme circumstances, if 3 specialist doctors they say that the person they're in so much pain and things like that, so only under those circumstances they do it. But normally speaking, the person they don't take these things, and especially if it's not for medical purposes for sure. And the other thing is, a lot of people they try to make excuses to do these forbidden things, and they'll say it's for medical purposes, and in reality, there's no medical purpose for it whatsoever. So there's something to bear in mind. So anything, that's what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that makes a person sukara, means befogged, then that's forbidden. And in the Quran, it mentioned that in the beginning it was allowed. So Allah says, "Wala taqrabu salat wa antum sukara." Don't go to the salat while your mind is befogged. And then that became abrogated. The alcohol became abrogated, and then people they didn't drink after that time. After it became abrogated in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the alcohol became forbidden.
Okay.
All right.
Whatever intoxicates, and they're saying a farq is 10 kilograms.
Yes.
So I don't know how much 10 kilograms, like 20 pounds. That's
Yes.
only 2 pounds. I mean, how much is that? That's a lot.
Yes.
It's like a
yes.
barrel.
Right, yes.
So if you drink a barrel of something
Yes.
and it makes you intoxicated,
Yes.
that means that it's haram for even a handful of it.
Right, yes.
But what about a painkiller?
The ulama, they have to decide whether that's negligible or not, because a small amount is excused. But that's what Hanbali
It's
School,
like
they
a
say.
handful, it's a lot, But what if
Yes,
you put like
yes.
a tiny amount, like a milliliter of it, or 2 milliliters of it?
Yes. In the case of things that have the alcohol, many of the ulama, they excuse it if it's a tiny amount. You got to bear that in mind. But the hadith, generally speaking, it says that if a large amount of it makes you intoxicated, and a small amount is not allowed. And over here, the sheikh, he explained it. He said the large amount refers to the farq, which is 10 kilograms, then a small amount, which is a handful, that would not be allowed. And then sometimes you have these substances, like you have, for example, the soy sauce. And many of the ulama, they say the soy sauce, even though it has a very tiny amount of alcohol that stays remnant there from the vinegar that's there, they say it's still allowed because it's not a large amount.
Yeah.
And over here, if you use this parameters
If
here,
you drank 10 kilograms
Right,
of
yes.
soy sauce, you're going to die.
it's not going to make you.
No,
It's
you're
not
also
going to
gonna
make you.
die first.
Right, yes, but it's not going to make you drunk. So therefore, the handful
Be allowed.
would be allowed in that case. So this is the parameters of the sheikh that he gave. 10 kilograms if it makes you drunk, all that consuming that much, then a handful will not be allowed. So then you have two issues here. One is if 10 kilograms of it will make you drunk. If it doesn't make you drunk, and 100 kilograms make you drunk, then you would say that it doesn't fall into that restriction. And then also the amount that you consume. Is in a handful, what fits in the hand. So if it's a smaller amount than that, like a teaspoon or something like that, and that's mixed in there, then the amount. So you have both those issues. That's the parameters
How
that
do
the
we
sheikh
determine
gave.
who's drunk or not, Sheikh? So something's like really on the edge.
This,
The
well,
guy
nowadays they
drinks
have,
that.
maybe you can look at the way that they do things in today's day and age. They
The
have
blood
sobriety.
alcohol level?
They have sobriety tests, right?
Yeah.
And when a policeman pulls you over, he gives you a sobriety test, right, to determine if the person is drunk or
Well,
not.
these guys, like, they drink like a beer and then it's okay. But we're not allowed to drink a beer.
Right. Yes. Yes. Well, the drunkenness doesn't mean that that it takes like quite a bit of drinking to make a person drunk, more things than the other. And nowadays they have they have the blood alcohol level, and if you drive, it can't be more than 0.10 or 0.08 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what they say, and those are for the people that drink. So they have these different parameters for it. And they also have the sobriety test. The policeman asks a person to walk in a straight line and things like that. So maybe you can look at those ways to determine if a person is drunk. And they have what we call the breathalyzers and things like that. They can do that for the alcohol.
Okay.
But anyway, the khamr in Arabic, it means something that befogs the mind, where a person they can't think properly. At that point.
وإذا تخلت الخمر طهرت وحلت.
Yes. So what happens is, what happens when you look at the changes of states? First of all, you start out with grapes, and then grape juice. Then the grape juice, if you keep it long enough, it ferments.
Wine,
That becomes wine, and wine is haram. And then you keep that after a long time, then that becomes vinegar, and vinegar is allowed. So then you have those different states. And what happens is there are some narrations where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade the manufacture of vinegar. He forbade people to do it on purpose, and that's why the sheikh, he said that if you leave it alone and you don't do anything with it, and it turns into the alcohol and it turns into the vinegar by itself, then it's allowed. But if you go through the process of manufacturing it, then it's haram. That's what he mentions on the next point.
Yeah, وإن خلت لم تطهر. What does that mean? We make vinegar all the time.
Well, if it's manufactured on purpose, then it's not
Yeah, we do
allowed.
manufacture vinegar on purpose.
Yeah, it's not allowed. And if you look in the hadith from Rasulullah, because there's hadith that said not to do it.
But like you go get like distilled vinegar, you go get like apple cider vinegar, and we put it in our foods.
Yes, so that would not be allowed to manufacture it. That's what the hadith says from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Said don't manufacture it. But if a person, they leave it alone and it does it by itself, then it's allowed. But if it's manufactured, a person may purposely go through and process it and produce it to make it into vinegar, that's not allowed, because there's hadiths that say that.
Well, maybe it's talking about like when, like, you're purposely like messing around with the stuff. Like,
Right, that's the reason
like
behind it.
With the alcohol, and
Yes.
you're like trying to justify
Yes.
drinking alcohol.
In the Hanbali School, the Sheikh, he goes by the hadiths that are present there. And in his time, he collected many hadiths. They have the Musnad Imam Ahmad. And what he did is a very large collection. It's a collection of all the hadiths that were available at that time. The Musnad Imam Ahmad, which is very voluminous. And the Sheikh, he went through those hadiths, and then based on the things in the hadith, he came up with the different rulings. He didn't come up with these things on his own opinion or logic.
But I don't understand the difference between it happening by itself and then you doing it. Because I mean, wouldn't it actually make more sense to do it so that, like we make alcohol, we make vinegar all the time because we cook with it and make it our food.
Well, the thing is, when you manufacture it, then you have to touch the alcohol, and you have to move it around, and you have to do all those things, and you're interacting with it, you know. And whereas if it's just left by itself, then you're not doing anything with it. But anyway, the reason he says that, there's a hadith that says that, you know, not to produce the vinegar, that talks about that.
So like we go to Walmart and we get a big gallon of vinegar. They made that on purpose.
Well, the people that made it, maybe they're doing something haram, but it doesn't mean that the vinegar itself is forbidden. You know, vinegar is allowed. Consume it. Just the person that manufactured it. That's what it says there. No.
But it says lam tatahhar.
Oh yeah, that's problematic. We'll look at the details about it. We'll look at that. That's another issue that you have if the alcohol is tahir or not. You know, that's another issue, because what happens is the alcohol, if a person they drink it, then it makes them drunk. But the question is alcohol itself impure or not? And with that, the ulama had different opinion on that. And the ulama of the madahib, they said it is impure. That's what they say. But some of the other ulama, they say it's not impure because there's not an evidence to say that's impure. It's only forbidden. And you can't say just because something is forbidden that it's impure. Because, you know, you see like gold is forbidden for men. And you can't say that gold is impure.
I think they base it off the ayah al-khamr wal-maysir wal-ansab wal-azlam rijsun min amal ash-shaytan. Rijsun is a filth, right?
Yes, but then you have, you know, the other things there. Maysir wa aslam, which is the arrows, and aslam is the
they're not physical things.
You know, the dice and, you know, the darts, and you wouldn't say that those are impure, but the spirit behind it is impure.
Right, so it's talking about in a majaz kind of way, like figuratively, not a literally.
Right, it's spiritually impure, you know, the person they act upon it, you know. What study go and avoid those things, you know. Okay, so that's the thing there. You can look into more detail, and you know, because the Sheikh, he has a larger collection in the Mughni, so you can look into details about the manufacturing of vinegar, what they say about that. But there is a hadith that mentions that, and that's why he mentions that. The vinegar, if it comes about by itself, it's not impure, but if a person, they manufacture it, they make it, it's considered to be impure. That's what they say in the Hanbali School. Other schools, they might have different rulings, but that's what he goes by. Okay, inshallah, so these are the things that are not pertinent to animals. In the animals, that's the next chapter. Some of them are allowed, some of them are not allowed, and they make a distinction between sea animals, animals that live in the water, that live on the land, and then you have all those things that are mentioned there. So inshallah, that's there. And then also how you slaughter the animal, that's another chapter on that. And inshallah, we'll cover those in the future, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willing. Let's stop over here. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk. Did you have any questions or comments?
No, Sheikh.
Okay, we'll stop over here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And just follow the ilm that's there. If I said anything for myself, just disregard it. Allah knows best. And sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.